So our requirement is how many unique people have a numerical entry per department. So let's look at marketing here. Marketing has Mike has at least one number, Oz has at least one number, and Deborah has at least one number. That's why we get a 3. Let's look at finance. So Kevin has one number and Oz has one number. That's why we get a 2. So look at this data set, and the departments are in column A, but we have these ugly merged cells where the word is only in the top part of that merged cell. So A10 has finance, A5 has marketing, and A2 has sales. So this is quite a difficult data set to analyze. So someone was going through here and just counting, okay, that's 2, here we have 3, here we have 2, but the real data set had 3,000 rows, so this would take way too long. And what if it was 30,000 rows? So let's look over at our decision. We have a decision to make. We know that our data is not normalized and we have merged cells. So it's kind of a very awkward data set, but do we go this way or do we go this way? We could clean up the data set and then build a solution, or we could build a solution on the data as it currently is without doing any kind of normalization or cleanup. So let's look at the two different ways. Solution one would be that we normalize the data. We take this sloppy data set and we normalize it like this so that each thing, because really we only have 3 things here. We have department, we have names, and we have the data. So you look over here, that's what we have. Department, name, and data, or a value. The next step would be this. We click this and we want to add a helper. So our helper, we don't want to, remember, if Mike has, for sales, if Mike has 2 numbers, it still counts as 1. If he has 3 numbers, it still counts as 1. So let's go back here, and what this formula actually does, first of all, if this cell is blank, then we put a blank. The next thing is, if we simply do a count ifs without this 1, see, the count ifs is saying it has to be the same department, has to be the same person, and we have to have a, over here it says column C has to be not equal to blank. If we didn't do 1 divided by the count ifs, we would have a 2 here and a 2 there. So let me just take that out for a minute and show you what it would look like. We have a 2, and we drag this down, and it would be, this would be incorrect, 2 and 2. What we want to do is in the end make a pivot table and just say, okay, for sales, just add up the helpers, and the answer should be a 2. So let's go back, let's just take this formula, drag it back up to the top. So now we would get that correct answer. If we add up these, we get an answer of 2. So that's what happens. Down here, remember over here we have, for marketing, we have Oz having 3. So let's look at that over here. If we look at marketing and Oz with a value, we have 3, it's 3 times, so we do 1 divided by 3, we get this 0.3. We add them up, and that's a 1. 0.5 twice, that's also 1. And Deborah already has a 1. So we would get the correct value of 3 that we have over here. So the last step is we just add a pivot table. In the pivot table, let's just take our field list here, and we put department in the rows area, and we put the helper into the values area. So we get our answer right in there. So this is great. If you take that extra time to normalize the data and just put one little simple helper, a quick pivot, you get your answer. The other way to do this would be our solution 2, where we just do our solution on top of the data the way it is. A little bit more tricky, takes some creativity, but it is possible. It's sort of a band-aid solution. So here's our data. Let's look at our helper columns. We have more helper columns because of this awkward data set here that's not normalized. So a very easy if statement, and that's just to repeat. Remember, the sales is only in cell A2, marketing only in A5, finance only in A10. So this simple if statement is going to repeat, looking over to see if it's blank or not, and then here it switches properly. Here it switches as well. If it's not new, it just repeats. If this is blank, actually, it just repeats the value above. So the next step, I'm simply going to count sales is 3. It's just a simple count if. Marketing is 5, finance is 8. So that's just looking at this column and counting them. You'll see why I did that in a minute here. The next step is to say, all right, we have to take, for each person that's a column here, 4 columns, we need to have 4 helper columns here. We want to just do an if statement around the count ifs. If there's at least one number, if it's greater than 0, put a 1, else 0. We don't want to put 2 for Mike because in each of these cells, we only want to put a 1. So if it's greater than 0, we get a 1, else a 0. And I repeat that for all of the 4 names. And the next step is this. We want to, in this final sum, we want to add up these numbers here. That would be 2 divided by 3. So you see, for sales, we take these 3 numbers, add them up, and we get the proper answer of 2. For marketing, we're dividing it all like this so that we're going to get the proper answer, which is 3. And finally, finance, there's 8 of them. 8 times 0.25, we're going to get the correct answer of 2. So the last step here is we just put in a pivot table. So let's just show our pivot table, go like this. And we want to see the pivot table feel less. It's the same kind of thing where we put the department in the row label area. We put this final sum into the math area, and we get the same answer here, 2, 3, and a 2. So really it comes down to that decision that you make. Are we going to go this way and clean the data up first, taking a step back, and then we can go quicker and more easily analyze our data? Or are we going to simply build some kind of band-aid solution on that awkward data set and get our answer that way?